All right. Welcome to the Highland Heights Sunday morning Bible class. We are thrilled that you are joining us for this conversation. As always, we're not so thrilled that we're not able to meet in person. We're looking forward to the day when all of the adult Bible classes, all of the children's Bible classes are able to rejoin to come back together for more teachings. But until then, we're making the best of the time. So, looking forward to continuing in our series on apologetics. Each week we are taking a different argument that is often made against the Christian faith. You've probably heard many of them, maybe not all of them, but many of them, and doing our best in 30 to 40 minutes, hopefully 30, to get through as much information, thoughts, contemplation on these arguments and seeing really how we can turn these arguments and point people to Jesus, because that's what we do as Christians. We don't say, look at us, we look at Jesus. So this week, we are talking about the offensive nature of Christianity. Perhaps you've heard before that Christianity is offensive because it's, Christianity says, in fact, Jesus says, that he is the only way to God. And because of the exclusive nature of those claims, Christianity needs to be thrown out because it is not open to other ways. So, Jeremy, do you buy that? Is Christianity exclusive?
Yeah, it is exclusive. But to the objection, which is that somehow Christianity is uniquely exclusive, or that Christianity is somehow offensive by being exclusive. Well, to the question of it being offensive, I would say, and so your point, it's the wrong question. Now, to the idea that it is uniquely exclusive, well, that's patently false. Okay, every single religious doctrine, every single religious belief makes some claim to exclusivity. Okay, and you'll sometimes hear, well, no, this religious belief doesn't make a claim to exclusivity, or that religious belief doesn't make a claim to exclusivity. And while they may not make a claim, the same exclusive claim, okay, that somehow they are the only path to God through their doctrines and their beliefs and things like that, in saying you can't limit God, or in saying you can't say that I'm wrong, they are making an exclusive claim to the denial of exclusivity. Okay, they are excluding anyone who disagrees with their definition of what is available. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so just to point to some different religious groups here that try to have what they would call an inclusive religion. So one of the younger world faiths is the Baha'i faith. And the Baha'i faith recognizes 8 different prophets, including Jesus and Abraham and Muhammad and the Buddha. And so they would say, well, actually, there's many different spokes to this wheel that are all pointing to the same center of the wheel. And no matter which of those spokes you travel down, you will eventually get there. There's other faiths that do not proselytize. They would do their best to say, for example, the Hindu faith would say it's really not worth it for us to proselytize, because if you're a good person in the next life, you will, perhaps you will be born a monk of some sort. So you will be born into that caste that will allow you to learn about our faith. There's even, a faith that we're more likely to be familiar with would be Judaism. And some sects of Judaism today would not proselytize because they would see religion as a culture. And I think part of the argument that we're building here, let me put it this way. One of the reasons why people think that Christianity is offensive is because they see Christianity as a culture. It's something that you're born into. And so when you're trying to tell someone that you can't be a Jew, you can't be a Hindu, you can't be a Muslim, you can't be an atheist, you're essentially telling them to forsake their mother, to forsake something that is cultural rather than something that is eternal. So there's different conversations that are happening here as well. I, I guess one area where I'll push back on what you were saying, Jeremy, and I'm not sure how strongly I agree with this, but when someone says that they want to be inclusive, that everyone's okay, sometimes I think we have to just take them at their word that they actually believe that. They'll say, if you want to believe that Christianity is the only way, great, you believe that. So it's an inclusive style that seeks to not upset anyone. And if you want to proselytize, that's fine. So I suppose that those things can be taken to an extreme. But even then, I think, and this is the case that we're trying to build, that there's something deeper that we're trying to get at that can get past the cultural issues and the calls for inclusivism, and can dig at a deeper issue than even those. So anyway, I will hand it back over to you about the uniqueness and why that's important.
Well, the reason that that it's important to understand that we're not the only ones making this claim, is we're trying to point people in a direction, and we're trying to show people a path. The kind of the example that's used for this is, people will say, well, we're all searching for the divine, and however you find the divine, that's the best way. The classic example is the old Hindu proverb of the three blind men who come upon an elephant, right? And each of them feels a different part of the elephant. So I've heard different variations, but one feels the leg, right? This is a very docile elephant, apparently. One feels the leg and says, oh, it's a tree. The other feels the side of the elephant and says, it's a wall. I'm not sure what the wall was built out of, but it's a wall. One feels the trunk and, again, docile elephant, and says, oh, it's a snake. And so they say, we're each perceiving the divine in different ways, okay? And there is a sense where we are all looking for some sense of divinity, some sense of meaning and things like that. The problem with the proverb is this. All three men have one disadvantage in common. They're blind. What does the man who can see know? It's not a tree. It's not a wall. It's not a snake. It's an elephant. Okay. And that's the important thing, is when Jesus says he is the only way to God, he is the only way to the Father, he is also saying that he is the truth. And that's the key thing that we have to keep pointing people back to, is that this is important because it is true. And truth does not care if it offends. Truth is. It's that which corresponds to reality. Truth is. Okay. And sometimes I think we get in a mess because we give people the impression that we're preaching Christianity, we're teaching Christianity because somehow it's better, which is true, but we talk about it because it's better. Like I've heard one skeptic talk about an experience when he was in school, and the teachers and the skeptic is asking questions, and the teacher said, "Don't worry about it. You'll appreciate all this when you're hurting." And the skeptic was, I think quite rightly, appalled that a teacher would say that. Okay, because we come to the world as it is, not as we wish it were. And so we're not recommending Christianity because it's some sort of moral therapeutic deism. Okay, we're not recommending Christianity because it makes us feel warm and fuzzy inside. We're not recommending Christianity because we think it is somehow superior. And this is the problem, I think, sometimes, is we go to the world and we say, hey, you should be a Christian because Christianity is better. And like you said, people hear that as Christianity is better culturally, or Christianity is better historically, or Christianity is somehow superior as a man-made doctrinal institution. And that's not what we're saying at all, okay? We're saying it's better because it's true. If Christianity is just a security blanket, why can't the Hindu, the Buddhist, the Shinto, Muslim, Baha'i, atheist, moral relatives, why can't they have their security blanket too?
Yeah, if all we're doing is measuring the dopamine release in our heads that makes me feel good about myself, then maybe Christianity gives me a little bit more, but for someone else it might be something else. So it's not about feelings, although that might result. We're not discounting the comfort that comes from being a part of God's church, but if that's all that there is, then it's hard to persuade someone else who's getting the exact same thing from another group of people.
Well, and the comfort that comes from Christianity ultimately comes from the knowledge that it's true. Christianity is not better and therefore it's true for Christians. Christianity is true and therefore it's better because Christianity being true makes an exclusive claim. Well, assume for a moment Christianity is true. Then that exclusive claim is true, which means Christianity is better. Why? Because it's true. See, and that renders it superior to things that are not true, that do not conform to reality. So we're making a truth claim, and it's an absolute truth claim. And this is the thing, we have to keep forcing people back to the question of true or false. Is it true or isn't it? And truth does not change because it offends people. There are a lot of things in this world that are true, even though they offend people or upset people or bother people. Okay? But that doesn't change the truth of the statement. Mm-hmm. So to begin with, the question of, is Christianity offensive because it claims Jesus is the only way to God? Maybe. That's not the right question. The right question is Christianity true when it claims to be the only way to God? Okay, and if it is, then it's our responsibility to tell people that truth.
Yeah. So I think you're saying this well, and it's leading us down the right way of thinking about this. I think one other kind of underneath the surface thing that is being asked in the question, that is part of Christianity is offensive because of its exclusive claims. So what are the claims about Christianity? What are the claims that Christianity is making? Yes, that Jesus is the one and only Son of God, and in order to live eternally with God, you must follow through Jesus is the one way. But in order to do the following, there's another level of offensiveness that your life has to change, and perhaps they would not say so directly, and we'll probably talk more about this in future weeks, but there is something offensive about you have to change your life. And someone can, they can say, I want to follow this religion or that religion, but as Christians, we believe that the choice is between giving your life completely over to the revealed God or to not do so, and to deny yourself to do that. So you have to pay attention to the truth claims of God himself, or to reject those truth claims. And when you reject them, you can go off in all sorts of directions. But there's a binary choice between, in accepting the claims that Jesus makes or to not do so. And oftentimes one of the reasons why people are not willing to do that, and I'll be honest, sometimes the reason why Christians don't give, myself included, we don't give our entire lives over, is because we like controlling our own lives, and we like having the ability to say, this is what I choose to do, rather than saying I subordinate myself to the will of God. So from there, we start having to ask questions about, all right, so what is truth? And I'm trying to think, have we covered all of the thoughts here on whether or not it's, the importance of truth statements here, or is there more to say?
I think it's just to add on to
Sure.
the idea of truth. Truth is not something our world likes very much. And a lot of that stems from we want to be the master of our own fate. We want to be the captain of our own fate. We want to be able to say, I did it myself. We don't want someone or something making demands of us. Okay. And there's almost an implied reciprocity in that moral relativism of, look, you don't make demands of me, I won't make demands of you. Now, of course, that only goes so far. There are times when it seems like people say, you practice what you want to practice and you preach what you want to preach, and I'm going to preach what I want to preach. But no, you can't preach that because that offends me. See? Or you can't preach that because you're making yourself more important, more valuable, wiser, any number of things. And we have to keep, and one of the ideas we have to remember is truth is outside of ourselves. Truth does not come from us. Okay. And that hits on a key idea here that a lot of times Christians come across as saying, you need to live your life like me if you want to be saved. And so we wind up saying, you need to follow Jesus just like I'm following Jesus. And we give the impression that somehow we're trying to convert people to our faith.
Right.
We're not. Paul actually says, follow Paul as Paul follows Christ. Okay. And there's several lessons in that. If Christ is going one way and Paul's going another, follow Christ, not Paul, but as Paul is following Christ, you follow Paul, because our ultimate goal is to follow Christ. We're not calling people to be like us. Okay. We're calling people to be like Christ, which opens a couple of doors. One, we can admit our failings. And that'll open up a lot of doors and build a lot of bridges, is to say, look, I'm not perfect either. I'm searching for truth. You're searching for truth. Let's see where truth is. Okay.
Yeah.
And two, it's not about, hey, you have to be like me, which sounds very selfish and arrogant. It's, I am humbling myself by pointing you to someone other than myself. Yeah. And that's Christ.
So, so it's kind of the opposite of that, is that oftentimes we want instead of a cruciform church, we want a Michael-formed church. I want, in fact, that's what we kind of do with church shopping. I want a church that looks like me and looks like my doctrines, and to some degree that's understandable, because we come to a certain understanding of what Jesus wants for us. We actually, we're trying to be like Jesus, and we think that this is the way that it should be. A quick a Nashville story, but I won't drop the name of the celebrity. But there was a news story a while back about a Nashville celebrity that went to a church, considered herself a Christian, and basically called out a church leader, the preacher there, said, "Don't teach about this specific teaching anymore. It's offensive, and if you do, I'll stop coming." And if I remember the story correctly, the doctrine was changed, or they stopped teaching about it at that specific congregation. On the other hand, though, we could say tisk tisk to that celebrity for doing so, but sometimes when I'm offended by something that Wayne says, or too often what Jeremy teaches in class, I get offended myself. That goes against what I think that the way should be. Or Wayne, Kelly, Stan, don't preach enough about this. You're preaching too much about these other topics over here, and I don't need that anymore. We get too easily offended that the church and the message that is presented doesn't look enough like me and what I think it should look like. Perhaps Wayne, myself, or whoever needs some, you would like to hear what all of us want to know about, but hopefully where we're able to go is agreeing that Scripture should be taught. And to the degree that Scripture offends us, that's a good thing. It's something that we do need to hear, that our ideas about what is true should be offended and bent towards what Jesus would have us do. So hopefully I'm being offended, maybe not every day, but often enough to remind me that I'm trying to be more like God and not making God look more like myself. So we've talked about the idea of truth claims. What are the truth claims based in? So if I say that I want to be transformed to be more like the truth claims of Jesus. What makes the truth claims of Jesus any more truthful, the truthiness, than of the Prophet Muhammad or the good prophet Joseph Smith, right? Okay, sorry, that's a really bad joke. Edit this out. So what makes these truth claims any different?
They're truth claims.
What does that mean?
Well, here's what that means. Christianity, fairly uniquely among world religions, is making its claims based on historical and historically verifiable events. Paul talks about in 1 Corinthians 15, if you can knock down the resurrection, you knock down the whole thing. Okay. And what's interesting is there's significant verification of the resurrection. There's the witnesses and the various reasons why we trust the witnesses. They didn't have anything to gain. They were martyred for their proclamation. They had every reason to say that's not what I saw, and no reason to say that is what I saw. And again, they were making a specific claim. One of the fascinating things about the Gospels is they follow first century writing conventions in some ways, one of which was the way they dated things. Okay, in thus and such year of so-and-so the emperor, and thus and such year that so-and-so was the governor of this, and thus and such year that so-and-so was the king of this. And I mean, Luke hits all of those. So he's saying, hey, this is when this takes place. Okay. One of my favorite things to tell my students at school is we'll talk about the life of Jesus, and I will tell them Jesus was born in 4 BC, which they then go, wait, but BC stands for before Christ. I'm confused. Okay, the monk that did the dates got the dates wrong. That's what's going on there. But how do we know Jesus was born no later than 4 BC? Because Herod the Great died in 4 BC. And Herod the Great was alive when Jesus was born. So Jesus had to be born somewhere between 6 and 4 BC, probably. Okay, that's a historically verifiable claim. You can go check, and if you can tear these claims down, the entire thing collapses. A movie that I enjoy is actually, it's a dramatization of Lee Strobel's Journey to Faith. It's also called The Case for Christ. And at the beginning of the movie, Lee Strobel is, he's concerned because his wife has become a Christian. And so he goes to the religion reporter at the Chicago Tribune where he works, and he says, okay, I want to disprove this. And the guy finally says, okay, look, here's what you do. You want to disprove Christianity, tear down the resurrection. You do that, the whole thing falls apart. Okay. And so that's the book or the movie chronicles his journey to faith, which he also chronicles in his book, The Case for Christ, where he goes and searches the historical claims. And again, it's history. See, this isn't a philosopher who brings philosophy down from on high. This isn't someone who goes up in the caves and claims to see visions. These things happen. There are witnesses. They're verifiable accounts. So what we're saying here is these are truth claims. They are grounded in reality. This is not just Jesus talking. He is making claims about who he is and what he's doing. Okay. And so that's the uniqueness, is it is grounded on a foundation of this really happened. God really entered history in the person of Jesus Christ of Nazareth. Jesus Christ really did die on the cross. He really was raised from the dead. He really did ascend to heaven. All of these things. He really did do the miracles, wonders, power, signs, etc. that we talk about. He really did teach these things. It is grounded on fact. And again, if you tear down those facts, which people have tried to do, inevitably they fail. In fact, it's reached the point where I forget what I was reading, but I was reading, I think it was an article on Josephus, who was a first century Romano-Jewish historian. He participated in the Jewish revolt in AD 66 and then switched sides and became, a supporter of the Romans. He's one of our best sources on what first century Palestine was like. And this article said Josephus is right up there with Luke and Acts in terms of our knowledge of what life was like in first century Palestine. People keep trying to tear it down and it keeps standing up. So it's grounded in reality. It's grounded in truth. It's grounded in fact. And that's what's unique. Christianity makes verifiable truth claims. You can check. Okay. And again, if they fall down, the whole thing falls down, but they don't fall down.
So these truth claims that are made are exclusive in themselves. And so when we have these conversations with doubters or non-believers of different stripes, it becomes less of a conversation about which culture you're picking, which religion you as a person are choosing. You offer to them, let's consider the facts. And perhaps because we as Christians believe, I believe we can also say that we know this, but because we know that these facts are true, we have nothing to fear in our own faith. Now, because of, I hate to, I feel like I'm using kind of coded words here, but because of their lack of desire to come over to Christianity, they might choose not to go along with the facts. Maybe there's not enough evidence to support their change in faith. For some people, there's never enough evidence. There's nothing that you could possibly say that would cause them to believe in the truth of the Christian faith. In fact, Jesus himself told his disciples as he was sending them out that some people would not believe. And when they don't believe, wipe the dust off your sandals, not in any spiteful way, but to say, I'm done here. I have presented the truth. And that's all that we as Christians can do. It's not a lack of faith or lack of knowledge on our behalf, but Jesus predicted that there will be those who refuse to believe. And that is the personal choice that some make. So when we compare the trustworthiness, the truth of these claims, yes, they are offensive to, they are exclusive of other religious claims. They can't both be true at the same time. So while we as Christians believe we have the true superior claim, Jeremy, I've got about 3 minutes left. Walk us through, if we believe that we have these claims of truth, how do we present them in such a way that is exclusive yet inviting, that is based in, founded in truth, but open to loving others?
Well, I'd say two things: love and patience. And let's do them in reverse order, because why not? Patience. In a lot of cases, you're asking someone to give up something that they hold to dearly. That takes time and it takes effort, and people have to wrestle and they have to understand and they have to struggle. And remember, what seems obvious to us will not be obvious to a newcomer. This is not something you just understand like that. One of the things, one of my favorite lessons to teach my students, and I come back to it time and again to the point that they can actually recite it back to me, which is cool. Be even cooler if they internalized it and they're working on it. When the great example of faith that both Paul and James use is Abraham, right? And the moment of faith that both Paul and James use is this sacrifice of Isaac. And the story of Abraham starts in Genesis 12. Isaac sacrifices in 22, I think, 22, 26, somewhere in the area. So you're looking at 10 to 14 chapters. You can read the story of Abraham in, half an hour, 45 minutes. That's 4 decades of growth. It's not going to happen overnight. Give people time. Don't, it was when I used to work returns at a large electronics store called Fry's Electronics. They had 1 store in Austin. They actually had 5 in the Metroplex. So it's kind of like a Best Buy on steroids. When I worked returns, we always knew which associates were going to get stuff returned. It was the high pressure sales guys, the guys that push, because they'd push people into an impulse buy. The people would get home out of the pressure and they'd go, I'm not doing this. This is dumb. And they bring it back. And then, you were required to call back there so the person could try to come up and save the sale. And you always felt bad for the customer because here goes the sales pitch again. Don't do the high pressure sales thing. Give people time and do it in love. Remember, we are not converting people to our faith. Michael, I think you hit the nail on the head earlier when you said some people, there's never enough evidence for some people. Sometimes we take that personally. We either take it personally because we're afraid we haven't done enough and we're going to be called to account or something like that for not having done enough. Or we take it personally because we genuinely love Jesus and we want everyone to love Jesus. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with that. That's a great motivator for evangelism, okay? Is I love Jesus and I want you to love Jesus too. But remember, it's not us they're rejecting. It's Christ. And that's even more tragic. It's one thing when someone disagrees with you on, a favorite sport or, your political beliefs or your favorite team or, your favorite food. Okay. I love potatoes. Neither one of my kids want to eat potatoes. We don't understand how that happened, but it's true. That's one thing. And by the way, it doesn't actually bother me much that they won't eat potatoes. So
every time any of my children don't eat their pizza, a tear goes down my face.
Well, okay. Pizza's one thing, that's a different level. I'm kidding. But this, these things, we can take them personally sometime. By the way, we shouldn't, but it's not personal. Okay. And the reason we're doing it is because we love Jesus and we love the person we're trying to convince so much that we don't want them to be cast into eternal darkness. Okay. And we'll talk later in the coming week about what all is going on with hell and why hell is so tragic. And it's a tragic, it's a horrible thing. I use this as an example to my students. If you're on a boat and you see someone out in the water and they're drowning and you got a life preserver, you throw it. That's what we've got. And it comes from a place of love. Communicating that can be difficult sometimes, but we always have to come back to, I'm telling you this because I love you. And because I want you to experience what I experience in Christ.
I'll echo one last thought and we'll be done. I think that just because we believe, and this is the one of the list of arguments against Christianity, this is the one where we unabashedly agree with what is being said, but we as Christians need to make sure that we're handling it in the right way. And that requires patience and love, just as you said. And we as Christians are too often, and I'm the first one here, I'm always patient with myself. When it takes me time to change, to get used to having Bible class before work, or whatever the small thing is in my life, I deserve patience and grace as I'm adjusting to the new way of things. But other people, they need to get their act together and completely turn over their life in an instant. We should apply the same level of grace to others that we want others to apply to ourselves. If we're able to do that, it'll solve this problem and a whole list of others too. Good conversations come out of Christians who are willing to listen and point others to the Jesus that has helped them in so many ways. So with that, we're just a little over time. We're okay. It has been good having a conversation with you, Jeremy, and to all who are joining us in these conversations, we really appreciate it. As always, we're looking forward to being back together, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.